Hey, escape artists. Today I'm going to explain why I feel that New Year's resolutions are total BS. But before I start on my rant, I will say that one of my goals, now goals, not resolutions, is to start providing a little bit more lifestyle content on this channel, such as trips, maybe toys, things that I get to enjoy as a freedom mindset entrepreneur. And now, it's definitely not to impress you, but to impress upon you that anything is possible. Just put in the work, work with the right individuals, get the right mentorship, and anything is possible. So I think it'll be a little bit more exciting to share some of the stuff that my family and I do, my boys that help me with the business like crazy, what we get to experience. So I will start trickling some of that in a little bit because honestly, this has been really tough. I don't know if any of you guys have ever done a YouTube channel or tried to get one off the ground, but it's really difficult. It's very difficult trying to find content really to put on this channel and be exciting, right? And that's why I definitely encourage you guys to please share any tips or things or suggestions that you're looking for as far as content wise. What kind of material would you be interested in if you're starting on this entrepreneurial path? What would be helpful for you? Again, I've got a lot of stuff experience wise, but again, trying to just focus on what may be helpful for you is a little bit difficult. And I know it's not so exciting sometimes. So that's again why I'm going to put some more content that's around lifestyle and sharing some of the trips and stuff that we get to go on. Obviously challenges too. It's not all peaches and cream, right? There's a lot of challenges, but at the same time, I get to control those challenges on my own time, so to speak. I'm not going to a 9 to 5 or, longer shifts like that and working for somebody else. So again, it makes it so much more enjoyable. Let's get on to the subject of New Year's resolutions and my opinion on those. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with New Year's resolutions if that's, what really works for you. But I'm often asked, how I approach New Year's resolutions. And the truth is, I honestly no longer approach them at all. I don't think that they work for the majority of people. I'm more about actually reflecting back on the year, but I'm always reflecting back, period, whether it's the week prior, the month prior, etc. And that tends to do, a little bit more for me. And I think for the majority of people as well, if they start some of these different practices, that may help a little bit more. Some will also call those past year reviews. But again, it's more, to me, it's just a reflection exercise. And it's not so much about, setting a new hardline resolution, because when you really look at the statistics, it's like up to 92% of all resolutions essentially fail. And that's like within the first month, I believe. And there's really nothing wrong with failing. You'll hear me say this, failing is actually how you learn. And we want to say fail forward, right? So keep moving. As long as you pick yourself back up, you learn from that and you keep moving, okay? Keep moving forward, I should say. So failing's fine. But when we're setting up some of these unrealistic goals, or when I say goals, resolutions, right? Because I do believe more in the goal setting, and small incremental goals, I think is much, much more important. So again, getting to these little goals and these resolutions, instead of setting these big, huge obstacles that, again, you're probably not going to meet. It's like 92%, like I said, shows that you're not going to make it. We should honestly, in my opinion, be working on yourself little by little, again, with these little incremental goals, all 12 months of the year, right? And reflecting back and setting these, again, realistic things that you can change and behaviors that you can hopefully change, rather than, again, just setting these, these exercise goals, which, speaking of like the exercise goal is a pretty common one, right? And before we had this beautiful home and my own indoor gym, which is, again, one of those things that we may show as a lifestyle, big full gym, right? That's amazing. But before I reached that, we would go to one of the big box retail gyms, the nationwide gyms. And every year, of course, like I said, it'd be a little bit frustrating. At the same time, don't get me wrong, I love seeing people get into the gyms and get active and start changing their lives. But the frustrating part of it was that, we would be there around New Year's, and of course it would get really packed, right? But we would, after years of experiencing that, we would start chuckling a little bit because we knew that those individuals would come in. You could tell it was New Year's resolution individuals, and you would see a big chunk of those fall off the first week, and then the second week, and then by about a month out, absolutely wouldn't see any of those people again. Very few, right? And that was because I think that they were trying to take too big of a chunk and make such a drastic change rather than just setting some little goals and maybe adjusting one little thing first rather than trying to make this big leap. I don't know, but again, you see it was very, very common. Again, don't get me wrong. I was excited to see people, starting to change their lives, and that's what I'm always here to help, as well as, help to motivate you. But I think there's some different ways we can go about it. So that is a great example of these New Year's resolution goals that just tend to fail pretty quick. You might be asking, well, what kind of things other than these small goals? Well, there are some things that make definitely a difference. Maybe there's some strategy that works for some people. I'll go through a couple different scenarios that you might be able to take notes on, and that might help a little bit. But again, this goes back to just self-reflecting, reflecting on what you did in the past, in short-term and long-term, short-term, medium-term, and long-term, for example, the last week, the last month, and then the last several months, and so on, the last year. That's probably going to help more than anything. And just taking baby steps. It's really, really important that we're just taking little baby steps, again, making little subtle changes and sticking with those instead of one big goal, which again, I love, we call BHAGs, right? Big, hairy, audacious goals for certain things, right? When we're planning for maybe financial future, or that we want this, new home or new, whatever it may be, and it seems like it's way out of reach. That's okay too. Those go on your vision board. But in order to reach those BHAGs, right, we need to break it down into little bitty chunks, little bitty things that we can do on a daily basis that will help us to form new habits, etc. Yeah, nothing wrong with BHAGs. Let's get something that goes to that direction in incremental steps, so to speak, right? Yeah, you're going to veer off. That's okay. As long as we kind of stay towards that BHAG, but we're modifying the little goals. Hopefully that makes sense. One of the biggest things to really, really take note of, right? And I spoke about it in my past video as well, which is your why. That has to be something that is really prominent. You've got to have a definite why of why you want to make that change. Okay, it's not something surface level. Is it, for family reasons, right? Having more income to make sure that your youngsters and your grandkids, or whatever it may be, or your parents, whatever it may be, are taken care of. You got to really figure out those whys, and again, and then breaking these things down into small goals to get to that bigger why. But that's really, really, I think, one of the main points to me, and most important things for making changes in your life. Not resolutions, but again, these goals for change. Okay, and then really second to the why is being cognizant of your surroundings, right? Who's around you? What's around you? And those can be huge reasons why you're not making the changes that are necessary. And I know it can be harsh, but sometimes we have family members and friends that are living lifestyles that don't align with what we're trying to do. And that's got to be probably the most challenging one, especially when you have family that you love, but at the same time, that they're not the ones that are helping me improve. And what I like to refer to people to that are crabs in the bucket, so to speak. If you look at what crabs do when you place them in a bucket, find this stuff online, right? You can see exactly what they do. When you place them in the bucket, they immediately, especially when there's multiples, obviously, they start trying to climb out of the bucket. Those crabs that are actually at the bottom will grab that other crab and pull it down, right? So that's unfortunately what can be around us is family and friends that are those crabs in the bucket, that when they see us start improving ourselves and climbing to a different level, they will be right there unconsciously. It's not, they just feel more comfortable with you being in their similar circumstances, but they're going to try to pull you down. So that's probably my second item that you need to change as far as reaching these new goals or making these new resolutions stick, is working on your surrounding. Now, moving on to some other subjects that may be something that you want to list. But usually the goals or these resolutions, right? That's why we're speaking of goals. They're not specific enough. Just generally say you want to be healthier or wealthier, those kind of things. Again, they're too broad. Right? So we've got to break those down into, again, those smaller bites that I was mentioning. Put a number on your weight loss and make it small. Don't make it too big. It needs to be something small, and then be specific on how you're going to change that. So one, it could be through your diet. It could be, instead of going to the gym every day for 2 hours a day, which is going to be unrealistic, you're going to be so sore you're not going to stick with it. Again, that's what I would see all the time, is these individuals that come to the gym and just kill themselves. And of course they're going to get so sore and they're not going to want to stick with it. So they're getting to the small little goals. Maybe it's only twice a week, which, you might not think is going to change much, but that's BS again, because you're doing more than what you were doing before. So really make it small. So, get in there for 30 minutes, 15 minutes, do some stretches at home, just something small, and be consistent with it. Okay. And then that will start growing into more time, more intense workouts, that kind of stuff. Again, goals are just, or resolutions are set too large, in my opinion. And that's why people don't stick with it. And eating habits, same way. It can be very, very challenging, right? If you don't know, obviously sugar is extremely addictive, and carbs and all that really yummy stuff, but it's making little small goals to eliminate those things slowly. Enjoy the things that you really, really get into, but slowly work on that, and then think about that why. Why do I want to exercise a little bit more? Why do I want to reduce some of that, food that's not good for me as well, right? Why? Because you want to be around longer for your kids. You want to have a better quality of life, etc. So always go back to that original why, and that should start helping a little bit as well. Another one that I think causes issues is people don't have accountability partners. I think is critical, and that means, having a spouse, a close friend, a business partner, somebody else that you can kind of shout off the rooftops at, right? And saying, I'm going to make this change. Usually when you do that, you feel a little bit of that pressure to follow through. So accountability partners are another great tool, again, for those small incremental goals that are reflecting back on your why you want to make that change. So another factor that I think that, makes a major difference, that again, you should be making some adjustments to, is your focus. We all tend to lose focus, right? And someone, you say, squirrel, right? Shiny object syndrome, which I talk about in my other videos too. Okay. It's easy to get off onto these things that seem like the next, bigger and better thing, and adventures to help you with your resolutions. And honestly, you get sidetracked and you don't fulfill with one thing. So be careful with the shiny object syndrome and the squirrel syndrome, right? And chasing squirrels. And I mentioned it before, being around an environment that's not conducive to your goals. But again, I'll re-emphasize that. And that is, I think, one of the more important factors around, goal setting and making major changes in your life. And those people that are, really close to you, for example, a spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, significant other, whatever it may be, parents, if you're young, is making sure that, again, that environment is conducive to what you're trying to do. For example, if I'm wanting to start eating really clean and healthy and eliminate really, bad carbs in my diet, but yet my significant other or my family, my parents are just eating trash all the time, that is going to make it an exceptional challenge. So that's where, again, I think it's really, really important that you start having these conversations with those people close to you. And again, I know that's a challenge. Sometimes this is where relationships can go south, but you have to make that ultimate decision. What is right for you? Is this that crab in the bucket that is not going to help you become a better person and become the best version of yourself? But again, I wanted to reemphasize that, because diet's one of the most difficult ones when we're trying to change the food items If the rest of the family is eating junk or trash food, it makes it really, really difficult. So you have to draw that line in the sand and start deciding how am I going to make those changes? How am I going to have those difficult conversations? Because again, it's not until you start doing some of these things that these resolutions are ever going to come to fruition. Okay. Again, going back to just small goals and making some minute adjustments until you can have those major conversations. And obviously willpower, I know it's tough. Willpower, I think they say again too, is it's not as effective as what some people want to believe. So it's really, again, about the environment and making sure that, the whole family structure is on the same page. Hope that helps. Hope that makes sense. Now, moving again on to another one that I think makes some big impact, and it kind of ties to that why, but it's, you don't really want it, or you don't know why you want it. It's really, really important to make sure that you understand your why, what is the impact it's going to make on your life. And that is what's really going to make those changes, going to allow you to draw that line in the sand so that you can start making those changes based on the huge whys out there, why we need to do that. Again, losing weight, stopping smoking, all these things, right? Because of the implications that are going to happen to my family, or am I being the crab in the bucket? Right? You really need to evaluate those things again and make these small changes and goals. Maybe it's, way better for my spouse, my family, my brother, my sister, whoever it may be. Okay. So going back to the whys, extremely good. That's why it's number one on my list, is really figuring out your why and the things that you need to change in your life to become a better person. And I think one of the other issues to a lot of these resolutions and goal setting, all that kind of stuff, is you underestimate what it's going to take to get to some of these endpoints. And then that's because, again, when you're seeing how many days or you're not thinking about reality and what it's going to take, and you get into the gym, for example, on day 1 through 30, and you're not seeing those immediate, weight changes and whatnot, that's, again, becomes a deterrent, and you feel like you can never do it, when in actuality, you're probably exchanging some fatty tissue for muscle, and your weight's going to stay the same. So there's all these little factors sometimes that you don't realize and you don't understand. And again, they're going to get you sidetracked where you completely stop. Again, to reiterate about underestimating goals and underestimating what it's going to take. That's where it comes back to really setting small goals, achievable, bite-sized pieces, so that you can actually get to that bigger goal. Because again, it's really easy to get off track and deterred and depressed, unmotivated whenever you start seeing that the challenge is much bigger than you estimated or expected. Now, I think one of the last subjects that I'll speak about is these resolutions being totally out of sync with who you are or your identity. And identity is another really interesting subject. But what this means is, let's say, for example, let's say you're one of these really large, slightly overweight individuals, and you're known for being that big person, and you've really started identifying with, let's say you do have your own business, for example, and you're the big butcher guy behind the counter, or you're the big butcher Bob, right? That can make it a much of a challenge, because again, people that are coming in, your customers, are identifying, you've obtained that identity and you've embraced that identity of being big butcher Bob, for example. That's going to be that challenge as well. You've got to learn to start re-identifying with who your future person or your future self wants to be. And I think this is extremely important just in general, as you start making some of these changes in life, and whether it's business, again, your body, you really need to start visualizing and identifying with your future self, if that makes sense. Not, what your current identity is, again, like Big Butcher Bob. But if I want to be this fit person, the successful, financially successful person, whatever it may be, we should be looking at our future self and really starting to identify as that person. Hopefully that makes sense. But again, it comes back to visualization and, attracting what you're desiring, right? It does make a major impact. I've lived it. I can attest to it. So be careful with how we're identifying. That's probably the last one that I'll go over, but it's extremely important, is again, adjusting our identity and what we want for our future self. And then with all this, again, making sure that they're goals, right? And it never hurts to write some of these things down. I mean, you're going to see all kinds of stuff, and there's good and bad to all of it. I would just say that do what works for you, but really start working on these little small incremental goals as you make these little changes. And it's really important too that you're always looking back and reflecting and thinking about the wins, the things that have went well for the day, for the week, for the month, and these little small changes. You've really got to be proud of yourself, right? And reflect on yourself and say, hey, this is the changes that I made. And that will help with the inspiration and motivation to keep moving towards that BHAG. So hopefully that helped. If you're watching this though, and you're more into the financial side, which I know a lot of us, as we get to these new years, we're wanting to make all these financial changes. I know the health and wellness is the other probably really big one. And honestly, with what I do and my business does, it's for both. We have programs that are working in the health and wellness sector with some really cool innovation. If you're trying to get off on a new start and start working on some of these small goals, hey, come join us and hang out with and see what we're doing. We're getting involved in some things that are in the blockchain world, which is really exciting. Yes, I'm going to tell you that you need to be very careful. That's also what I'm here for, to help you and advise you and show you different ways to analyze these programs that are coming out, the utility behind them, and it's extremely important. It's easy to get burned in this stuff. But as we build this stuff, like I said, I'm looking for individuals like yourselves to be on the ground floor with us and be the leaders and the people that make the changes with the systems that we're doing to help people with health and wellness and to motivate individuals with that very subject. So if you're on that side more and you're struggling with your weight, you're trying to get better with your eating habits and introduce more exercise, you're going to love what we're doing. Like I said, the rewards driven platform that we're working with and creating is there to give you some extra incentivization, some things that can pad your bank account and at the same time allow you to build a business with it too. So it's really incredible. So if either one of those things are kind of checking off those boxes, so to speak, on what you're trying to do in your future self, with your future self, then you'll definitely be interested in what we're doing. I would love to have you on board. And again, just reach out with questions and make sure and sign up with the links below that will get you on our waiting list to get more information in this wellness coaching portal and the exciting stuff that we're doing for, again, health, wellness, and business building, all wrapped into one. So hopefully that helped. Hopefully there's some things that can help you with your 2024 and moving forward. And just, of course, remember too, that you're never too old or too young to get started on the path of freedom. You just have to get started. You have to take some action and make a promise to yourself that you're going to make these little changes, and everything will start happening for you, not to you. And again, doors will open. Contacts will come in, connections, networking, all that stuff, again, will start changing. And again, I've lived it. I'm total testimonial to making some major changes in my life earlier on and going through bankruptcy and all that good stuff. Again, we're going to end the video with that, but just know, again, with future content, that's why I'm going to be showing some more lifestyle material, again, to kind of show you and impress upon you what can happen when you start making some of these changes and understand the processes and whatnot that you need to go through and what you can go through as long as you're willing to make that change and your why's big enough. Okay. But that's all I have for you today. Over and out. Love you guys, and into the next video.